welcome to this edition of our live stream coming to you from the Huckabee Theater in Nashville, Tennessee. Hendersonville, technically, just outside of Nashville, where we do our show every week. Pam Kay, senior producer for the Huckabee Show, joining me as she does on Fridays. Pam, I hope you've had a good week.
I have had a good week. Busy preparing for a busy show for you for tomorrow night.
It's going to be quite the show.
Yes, it is.
And we'll have to tell all of our folks watching the live stream about it, but it's going to be a dandy. It's one of those, just like we have 3 shows in one. We have so many amazing guests, all in one show.
If we could have put them all in the first block, we would.
We could easily have a 3-hour show this week with all the people we have. Well, we're glad you're joining us for our Q&A time today. We have some really fascinating moments to share with you, things that have happened this week. And we hope that you will be a partner with us in participating. How do you do that? Well, you can send some questions to us in the chat. If you send us a super chat, moves you up to the top, more visibility. We got moderators who are watching the chat for your questions, and we'll get them to us. But it's always helpful that if you will subscribe to our channel and then hit that notification bell so we can let you know when we're going to be doing these events. Be sure to leave us a comment, a like, and of course, share with your friends and relatives and coworkers, neighbors, and even the people that you just bumped into at McDonald's, and tell them, hey, watch the live stream. We've got a lot of topics that will be coming up today. We're going to be talking about how President Biden is struggling with the LGBTQ, LMNOP, FGY, XYZ community. He can't figure it out either. Nancy Pelosi, she's not even sure what war we're in right now, but she's sure about all it, and she's going to tell us about it. And then the new White House Press Secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, well, you'll have to see it to believe it. Now, each week, we always ask a question from you, and then we pick one of those responses as our favorite comment from last week. This week, referring to the January 6th television special, Lucy D said this. She said, quote, Republicans need to have their own show. Tell how Pelosi would not agree to call up the National Guard. That's our quote of the week from Lucy D. We thank her for that. Now, this week's question that we would like for you to weigh in on. It's pretty simple, but we want you to share your thoughts with us in the chat, and we will share some of them during our live stream today. Then we will pick one of them out that will be our quote of the week for next week. Here's the question. How are you impacted by high gas prices and inflation? Maybe you're not impacted. If so, you're the only person in America I know who isn't. But if you are impacted by high gas prices and inflation, tell us how. Leave your answers in the chat, or you can leave them in the comment section. I want to get underway with some clips that we have from this week. These are things that maybe you saw in the news, maybe you didn't. We like to say around here that we read the news so you don't have to. And this is one that is just a head scratcher. Joe Biden this week claims that inflation is higher in the rest of the world than it is in the United States. He says it with a straight face. Don't believe me? Watch.
And I've said many times, tackling inflation is my #1 priority. Inflation, there's no solace as inflation is higher around the rest of the world and gas prices are higher everywhere else in the world. Doesn't matter.
That's simply not true. And interestingly, even fact checkers from liberal websites like the Washington Post and others have said it's just not true. Most of the developed world have inflation rates that are significantly lower than ours, not higher. If you want to compare us to the Sudan, maybe that would be the case. But that really wouldn't be a very fair comparison. I just stand amazed that Joe Biden is able to just stand flat-footed and tell us that we have a great economy thanks to him. And I'm wondering on what parallel universe is he residing, because it must not be the one that the rest of America is experiencing. Now, this has been Pride Month, which means that all the people who are gay, are lesbian, are bisexual, transgender, whatever all the letters of the alphabet mean, he's not sure either.
I'm also proud to have signed an executive order on my first day in office to combat discrimination against LGBTQI, plus Americans.
I mean, why don't you just go through the whole alphabet? I learned that when I was a little kid. I think it would be simpler. especially for Joe. He can learn it musically and then say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. He can get through the whole alphabet, and that way we'll cover every single aggrieved person whose sexuality and gender is more important than their simply being an American. And we keep adding. I remember it used to just be the lesbian and gays, then we added bisexual, then transgender, and sometimes I'm not sure what the Q stands for, and then there's another L in there, and there's an I, and you know, it's just hard to keep up with it. So now here's why I worry about President Biden, because when he finishes a speech, he doesn't want to take questions. He never does that. But I want you to watch his facial expression and even his bodily movements as he leaves the podium, and it's almost like he's just totally lost. Where am I going? What am I supposed to do? Why have I been here? And what's next? Would somebody please come get me? Watch what I'm talking about. I really sometimes almost feel sorry for him. He just stares out into space. It's not like he's looking at anybody. And then finally, I don't know, somebody must have waved at him, and he goes, oh, yeah. And he continues just to drift off.
I think it's time they need to delegate one person that's responsible for that. One, just one.
Well, remember at the Easter egg?
The Easter Bunny?
The Easter Bunny came and rescued Joe Biden from a reporter's question.
Yes.
So when you've got to send a fully dressed adult in an Easter suit to protect the president, things are not good.
Yeah.
All right, I want to go to these real quick. This is Nancy Pelosi this week. She almost has as much trouble figuring out what she's saying as Joe Biden. And this week, she spoke about a war that we're in that I guess the rest of us were unaware we're still in it, because I thought we pulled out of it. Here it is.
Constraints that COVID has played. Look, we have the war in Iraq. We have COVID, which has really...
Yeah, really what, Nancy? The war in Iraq? Seriously? And that's what's causing high gas prices? And that's what's causing inflation? Boy, I'm not sure if she's aware of what year it is. But in that case, she was stumbling. Now, if you wondered if her sham committee, the January 6th committee, is really getting to Americans, the best way to answer that is to just let you watch this clip. This is NBC. They've been covering this. They've had terrible, dismal ratings. People just aren't watching it. They're not paying attention, and they shouldn't be. It's a sham. But this is Nancy Pelosi's little playground. But it has become so unbelievable, so lacking in credibility, that even NBC decided that enough of this, let's play golf. Watch.
As we come up at the top of the hour, we're going to have to end our coverage of this January 6th hearing on the NBC network. My colleagues and I will continue our coverage on the hearings on our streaming platform, NBC News Now. For everyone else, U.S. Open golf begins momentarily. I'm Lester Holt for NBC News in New York. Good day.
Why not? I just think it's hilarious, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, absolutely.
I mean, I guess it really shouldn't be funny, but the fact is, you know, you would think if this is that compelling, if it really was the end of the world, worse than 9/11, worse than the Civil War, worse than everything that ever has happened in America, but it's not as important as golf, by golly, and so that's what we have seen, and that's what I find just absolutely beyond amazing.
I know. I get a text almost daily from my mother reporting to me how many times she wanted to watch it and then just kept turning it off.
Just couldn't do it.
So just couldn't do it.
All right, give us some questions.
All right, we've got
from?
some. And Gov, of course, our question of the day, how are you impacted by high gas prices and inflation? I want to read a couple of responses to you, and then you can respond as well. KGB says, how am I impacted? My husband and I, who are retired and on Social Security, have had to go back to work to make ends meet.
Wow.
And Farming Mom of 5 says, we're farmers and the price of fuel, seed, and fertilizer is probably going to shut us down this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, that's the the human impact of this. And people don't understand that if, and for example, a farming mom, it's not just that the cost of doing business, the cost of labor, but if you run a tractor and you're putting diesel in that tractor and it's costing you twice what it did, your profits aren't going up. It's not like you're selling your food. Now, it may cost more, but inflation is driving the cost up, but there's less actual money in the pockets of the farmers and the people who are producing it. And their costs are going up exponentially compared to what they can sell it for. And everyone's having to deal with the transportation cost. It's getting not just the, let's say, the tomato out of the off the vine, but then it's getting it to the market, and then getting it to the supermarket, and getting it to the consumer, and on it goes. All that costs more because fuel costs more.
Yeah.
It's really, really tragic. And this retired couple having to go back to work, you know, they've worked their whole lives so they could not have to work, and now they're going back. It sounds like when Bernie, what's his face, the swindler, the swindled all the, what was his?
Gov. Here we
Madoff.
go. Our age is showing.
Yep. There. Well, fortunately, I have a producer who spoke in my ear and said Madoff. That's it, Bernie Madoff.
Bernie.
But I remember reading the most heartbreaking story of a 75-year-old retired neurosurgeon that had to go get a job as a Walmart greeter because all of his investments and savings were wiped out by the theft of Bernie Madoff. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm not sure some of these liberal politicians are much better than Bernie Madoff. They've also stolen the lives and the dreams of a lot of Americans.
Well, every American's having to reevaluate their finances in a way that they haven't had to do in years. Years. Someone else, Jeffrey Mills, wrote too, yep, inflation is his top priority. He's doing everything he can to max it out and destroy the country.
That's a good point. And I think when I hear Joe Biden talk about how I'm focused on inflation, I'm thinking, well, if you are, you're focused on making it worse, because it has been. But I don't know how he says with a straight face, and how his press secretary will say that this is the best economy we've ever had. Where does he come up with that? When every figure shows that that's simply not true. All right, in fact, let's move on to a clip that I think kind of points out how much the White House struggles. Karine Jean-Pierre, who is the very challenged press secretary at the White House, you know, I thought Jen Psaki was something in that she would just not say a whole lot, but she said it well, the nothing. But poor Karine, I mean, I guess nickname there would be Clueless Karine, because she doesn't seem to know what the White House position is.
And she can't find it in that binder.
No, she can't, and she just finally admits that. She was asked to clear up how or if Kamala Harris, the Vice President's policy task force on online behavior, was going to be different from the Ministry of Truth that the Biden people had first come up with. And here's how she stumbles through that.
That it's going to be different from the Disinformation Governance Board in that it's going to focus on illegal conduct online. But the memo creating it was a little bit broader and mentioned, and I'm quoting from the document, quote, online harassment, abuse, and disinformation campaigns targeting women and LGBTQI+ individuals who are public and political figures. Could you clear up the disinformation charge?
So I would need to talk to her team. I was not on the background call.
I know nothing. Nothing.
We threw that in there because I thought nothing more encapsulates what's going on at this White House, and especially with Karine Jean-Pierre, than the clip of Sergeant Schultz. You have to be older to appreciate that and have grown up during the time when Hogan's Heroes was on the air. That show could never make it today, so politically incorrect. But that's she might as well show up in a World War II suit and just say, I know nothing, I see nothing, because my team hasn't told me anything. And it's just amazing. The second one here, this is when she's trying to explain about the GDP growth, which has plummeted under Joe Biden.
Yeah, thanks, Green. So the Federal Reserve is predicting that GDP growth for the next 2 years will be 1.7%, under 2%, under 2% for the next 3 years. So is this what the president considers stable and steady growth?
What I can tell you is that we believe that we are in a transition right now, coming out of a economic recovery, a historic economic recovery, because of the work that the president has done this past year and a half.
I mean, this is hard to sit there and not laugh at. A historic economic recovery. This country was doing pretty well. We were coming out of COVID at the end of 2020. The economy was bouncing back like gangbusters, and we obviously had a bad year when everything got shut down. And then Joe Biden shows up, and on his first day in office, he does a whole flurry of executive orders that took the country the wrong direction. It was almost like giving him the entire, I guess, control of the Titanic, and he walks up, sees an iceberg, and says, "Full steam ahead." You know, and that's what we've done.
Yeah.
We've run right into the icebergs.
Yeah. I'm not sure he saw it, but he sure went toward it.
Well, and when he hits it and the boat's sinking, he says,
"Oh,
boy, I'll tell you what, this will make a great movie." It's just hard to sit there and watch her try to defend this. But I think the interesting thing, too, is that when it comes to fuel prices, there's always got to be a bad guy. Joe Biden's never responsible for anything. The buck flies all around his office, but it's never stopped there, ever. And right now, I guess he gave up on trying to blame Putin because people didn't buy that. They knew that was phony. So now his new bad boy, the oil companies. Watch.
Now we want to focus on the oil refinery, which is why we put out the letter today or yesterday. I'm losing my track of time. And so we see that as an important first step in making sure that the oil refineries are doing their part, again, patriotic duty, in making sure that they're putting out capacity and they're not taking advantage of a war that is hurting the American public.
There's so many things about what she said that don't make sense. One thing, she says that refineries need to put out more. Well, they can't put out more if they don't have the capacity to drill more. And they're stuck on that because this administration puts their foot on the neck of the oil companies, who, by the way, lost $20 billion last year. And the oil companies have finally had it up to here. You know, they're tired of being the whipping boy for this administration. And I'm not trying to be defensive of the big oil companies, but what people need to understand in America is that the big oil companies are not the heart and soul of our energy system. It's the small operators, the small drillers, wildcatters, the suppliers. There's a whole bunch of people involved, and it is a market-based economy, and it's a global one. So if our prices go up, it is because the supply has gone down and the demand has remained high, and it's because the cost of getting that energy out of the ground has become much more expensive due to government policy and various controls. So say what you will, but under President Trump, we had energy independence for the first time in 75 years. And the reason we did is because he said, it's our energy. Let's go after our stuff. Let's quit begging the Saudis. Let's not ask Venezuela for help. Let's not get it from the Russians. We have it under our own feet. Let's get it. And we did. And we were exporting energy, and everybody was better off. And even if you're not someone employed by big oil, do I have to tell you, you were better off buying gasoline at your local station for half the price that you're paying right now, because we were using our own sources of energy. And I want to say to her, how dare you talk about patriotism toward these folks when, if you really were patriotic, President Biden wouldn't be planning a trip to Saudi Arabia to try to beg their forgiveness for the horrible things he said about them, because he wants them to drill some more oil for him so that our prices can be lower. Why don't you go down to Houston or Tulsa or El Dorado, Arkansas, or Midland, Texas, and tell those folks who are drilling that they can go ahead and do it, and the government won't be coming after to get them.
Right.
Wouldn't that be nice?
We have to thank the folks, too. So many people are taking time out of their Friday afternoon to be with us today. Don't forget to smash that like button, especially if you're new to us. Let other folks know by sharing that we're on the air right now, and you have direct contact with Governor Huckabee. Carla Marie says, we are at the mercy of government who can cut us off anytime they choose. Where do we turn? We have lost our independence, our drivers and companies because of this. How do we get back on our feet?
Well, I'm going to quote Barack Obama, famously said, elections have consequences. On that, he was right. And the election of 2020 had consequences. So many people didn't like Donald Trump's mean tweets and thought he was, not a very nice man. I hope you think Joe Biden's nice and that you love what he's doing to you, and you can say what you want to, but folks, the Democrats own it all. They've got the White House, they have the House of Representatives, and they've got the U.S. Senate. And if they've got all three major institutions of the United States federal government, then you have to say that what they're doing is contributing to what you're experiencing. You want to change that? We have an election coming up in November. Many parts of the country, they're already saying, enough of this. Great example, South Texas this week, in a district that voted by 13 points for Joe Biden in the presidential election of 2020. They ousted a Democrat incumbent and elected a Republican by 8 points. That's a big swing. A Hispanic, first ever Mexican-born member of Congress will be going to take office. Her husband is a Border Patrol agent, which leads me to say the Democrats have totally misunderstood the Hispanic community, particularly in South Texas. Those are some of the finest, most hardworking, God-fearing, decent American people I've ever been around in my life. And the presumption of the Democrats that they're going to vote for Democrats because we want to open the borders is showing how stupid some of these Democrats are. The Hispanic community of South Texas do not want open borders. You know why? Because they love their families as much as anyone, and they want safety for their kids. They want peaceful streets, and they don't want drug cartels running their communities. And they want their jobs to pay well and not be upended by people who are illegal, who will work for half the money under the table. So folks, this craziness that's going on, I'll tell you another thing a lot of people forget. These are mostly very strong Christian people. They really are. They're church-oriented, they're pro-life, they're pro-family, they're pro-traditional marriage. And when they see the radical left pushing really an agenda of transgenderism and pushing the agenda of abortion on demand right up until the moment of birth, for many of them, that's too much. It's a bridge too far. So I think you're going to see a lot of this still going. This last week, the election, or the recall rather, of the district attorney in San Francisco, that was huge, and it wasn't even close. But this was another George Soros-funded DA who is letting these people out on the streets to commit multiple crimes. And the people in San Francisco, Nancy Pelosi's district, threw the guy out. Now that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Absolutely. We have audience from South Africa today, by the way. Joanna writes, God bless Mr. Huckabee and his family from South Africa.
Nice.
Truth is so nice to hear. Thank you.
How very kind.
That's very kind. A word from our friends there today. Anthony Ross is asking, Gov, if President Trump was exonerated by the Mueller investigation and then again by the Senate for the quid pro quo, then can't that be removed from his presidential record?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. You can't remove something that was a part of the proceedings. You can certainly say that it was proven to be false, that there was no Russian collusion. That's been established, I think, clearly. And all of these things that the Durham investigation further shows that he was not the one colluding. It was the FBI and the Department of Justice and the Hillary campaign and the Democrat National Committee that were all colluding together to appear or to make it appear that Trump was colluding with Russians, and who outright lied and falsified documents to do that. I hope that that doesn't get lost in the presidential records as well. I want to show this clip. This is John Kerry, who is the so-called energy czar. And John Kerry, if you wonder why that we are paying what we are for gas and why it's probably not going down anytime soon, this is the guy that Joe Biden put in charge of energy policy. Watch.
And energy security worry is driving a lot of the thoughts now about, oh, we need more drilling of gas. We need more drilling of this. We need to go back to coal. No, we don't. We absolutely don't. And we have to prevent a false narrative from entering into this, or again, pun intended, we are cooked.
Says John Kerry, who flies everywhere he goes on a private jet and is picked up by a big old limousine that is one more energy burning son of a gun. But I wonder, do you think you'll ever see John Kerry standing over at the gas pump on the self-service island pumping and then digging around to see if he can afford to fill up that big SUV limo that he's driven in, that he doesn't even personally drive, somebody squires him about? Or do you think it matters to him how much fuel is being sucked through his Gulfstream jet that he alone is riding on? He's not flying commercial like most of us do. I don't begrudge that he flies privately. He's got a lot of dough. He married it. Here's what I do get ticked off about, is that he's utterly insensitive to what you're going through. He has no idea how much struggle, as we've had from some of our viewers today. But here's what I wish John Kerry and others understood. I keep hearing about the simple solution is get an electric vehicle. Do you know how most of the electricity in this country gets produced? Because if you have an electric vehicle, that's great. But you have to have electricity, right? How does the electricity get produced? Do you think you get a kite and a piece of string and a skeleton key and you wait for a thunderstorm, and like Ben Franklin, you watch the lightning hit it and it comes down the string and fills up your Tesla? No, you have to get it from the electrical grid. And did you know that most of the electricity in this country is produced by, wait for it, fossil fuels? We're robbing Peter to pay Paul. This makes no sense. So the electricity that runs your electric car was produced by the very fossil fuel that John Kerry claims to hate. Go figure that one out. Makes no sense to me.
Julie Everett is a super chatter today. She says, Gov, love your channel. Love your channel. Mike mentioned too, Gov, we asked today, how are you impacted by high gas prices and inflation? 66% says that they're struggling to make ends meet. 29% says, well, I can't have any fun anymore. And 4% or less says, only 4% doesn't impact me at all. Wow. So that's from our viewers, almost 600, by the way, participating in the poll today.
Very good.
Watchman 117, now this is, we've got two questions for you from Watchman today. Was Mike rooting for or against LSU to win the 2019 national championship in college football?
I got to tell you, I'm an SEC guy. I had to reach deep, deep inside of me, but I rooted for the Tigers because they were representing the SEC. Otherwise, they're playing anybody else. It's hard for me, okay? I'm not a Tiger fan. Worst day of my life was watching a ball game in Baton Rouge against the Razorbacks. No fan of a team other than LSU ought to ever go into that stadium during a football game. I'll leave it at that.
All right, the second question from Watchman 117. I think I know the answer to this, and it'll be easier for you to answer, I believe. If President Trump asked Mike to be his VP running mate in 2024, would Mike do it?
Mike don't want that ball. Mike's doing what he needs to be doing right now, and been there, done that on, trying to be president. Enjoyed the run, but I'm going to leave it to others, and I don't think that's in the cards. Look, I got to make sure before we get away today, this is a clip from CNN that I thought was just stunning. Now, this is a CNN numbers analyst. So he's not only on CNN, which is surprising enough, he works for them. And he's on with Anderson Cooper. And Anderson Cooper asked him about Joe Biden's handling of the economy, and this was stunning.
In context, how bad is the surge in prices?
It's awful.
I mean, it's awful, and how people feel about it is even worse. You know, you look at the consumer sentiment right now, and what do you see? This is the worst consumer sentiment ever measured by the University of Michigan, going all the way back since 1952. Wow. You basically, even if you double my age, that doesn't get you back to 1952. And while I'm young, I'm not that young, right?
I mean, that's a guy named Harry Enton. He's a CNN employee, and he is about as blunt and bold as anyone else I've seen on any network. I just was stunned at how brutally honest he was. I'll tell you how bad it is right now for Joe Biden. When asked if she wanted President Biden to come campaign for her, a Democrat candidate for Congress had this to say.
The president or vice president want to come and campaign with you in this race? What would you say to them?
Frankly, I think I don't know the answer. I think it would be great if we could have Barack Obama and some of the other folks that I think would be really popular in our community.
That's maybe the most kind way to say, no, I don't want Joe Biden coming here. Please keep him away. Now, if Barack Obama wants to come, that'd be cool. But I don't want Joe. That was hilarious.
Yes, it was. I know we're running tight on time, but we can squeeze this one in from Mary Sharp. I read where a lot of Dems are registering as Republicans so that they can vote against Trump in primaries. Are you hearing that?
I hear sometimes that stuff. There's never enough of that it would make a huge difference, because most Democrats don't want to give up their vote, which is what they would be doing. And if you vote in the primary, you can't vote differently in a runoff, for example. Now, you can vote in a general election that way, but it doesn't really make sense, and I'm doubtful that it would have an impact. Hey, I want to remind you, be sure and leave questions for us in the comments. If you have not already done so, hit the subscribe button so you'll know when we're going to do these again. Hit the notification bell. That way we'll let you know when we're going to be on the air. And we just want to tell you how much we're grateful. Big number of people joining us today. Don't miss the show this weekend. We told you at the beginning of our live stream that it is a big one. I wasn't kidding. And if you think I was, watch this.
This week on Huckabee, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, combat veteran Congressman Mike Waltz, legendary comedian Tom Dreesen.
The internet broke down the other day, so I had to spend some time with my family.
Author Helen Smallbones behind the lights. And Christian pop duo for King and Country. Watch Huckabee on Saturday at 8, 7 Central, and again on Sunday at 9, 8 Central, right here on TBN.